In this module, we're going to go over some of the basics of setting up your initial campaign, your initial sponsored ads campaign. So there's several things you need to keep in mind here. So by now, hopefully, you've gone through the previous modules where you've determined what your budget may be. You've picked your keywords that you're going to be ideally targeting, that you've included in your listing and your title and your bullet points. And now it's time to actually start to advertise on some of those words to see if you can get some sales, to see which ones Amazon thinks is relevant to your product, to see which ones are converting, and go back and then make adjustments, which we'll talk about in another module, where you will actually see which keywords are actually working and which ones are not working so well. And then you want to go back and put more emphasis in your listing and changing your title perhaps to some of the keywords that were working a little bit better, and taking some of the ones that aren't working so good out, and maybe trying to find some other stems of those keywords, trying to find some other versions of those keywords that you can go after. But right now we're just going to go over the basics. We're not going to go into real big detail here. PPC can get very complicated for a lot of people very fast. It gets very detailed, so don't try to overthink it or overcomplicate it in the beginning. Just get the basics set up and then go from there. So here's what you want to do is log into your Seller Central, and you're going to go under Advertising, where it says Advertising, and Campaign Manager. That's where you're going to set it up. Advertising Campaign Manager. That's where the whole advertising module is on Seller Central. Now, Amazon is constantly changing this, so depending on when you're looking at this, it could look a little bit differently. But you got your campaigns here. They have something called portfolios. This is a little bit more advanced for once you have a lot of products, and once you get more advanced, you can set up portfolios. It makes things easier to manage. I don't want you to worry about that right now. It's a great tool, but when you're just getting going, you got your first product, you don't need to really worry about that in the very beginning. You have drafts, you have bulk operations. This is more for people who are uploading files and have a lot of advertising that they're doing, or maybe they're working with a consultant or something. These are some of your settings. Your settings here, you can set default settings, set budget caps, update the billing information. Now you have on the billing, Amazon will either deduct it from your payments, so you have the option of them deducting it from your payments, or you have the option of them actually charging to a credit card. And it's usually when it reaches a certain threshold. It depends on your account. It could be $500, it could be $750. Some people prefer to have it taken from their money that Amazon pays. Other people prefer to go onto a credit card, because if it goes onto a credit card, you can earn miles and points. I know a lot of big sellers on Amazon and big spenders that spend a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars per month in PPC, and they have a lot of it charged to a credit card. You can get like the Chase Inc. credit card, for example, and you get 3 points for every dollar spent on advertising on Facebook and Amazon. There's some caps to that. It's not completely unlimited, but for example, that's one of the cards. And so they're flying business class. They go to conventions or fly over to China to meet their supplier. They're basically getting free or heavily discounted tickets in business class just by using those miles. So it depends on what you want to do. Now, don't charge up a credit card and then just don't pay it off, because then you're paying interest and your advertising is even costing you more. So if you're in the ability and the capability to pay that off every month, and you're good at budgeting, then that can be a great way to get some additional perks. Some people even do a cashback credit card where they get 1% cash back, and they prefer to do it that way. It just depends on you, but that can be some of the advantages too. You also have your advertising reports, which we'll talk about in another module where we'll talk about optimizing. So we're not going to go over that right now. Well, let's go back over to the campaigns. Now, one of the most important things when you decide to advertise is when you first set up your initial campaigns, you're going to do what I recommend. There's different schools of thoughts on this, but I recommend setting up at least 3 campaigns. And the first one is going to be an automatic campaign. And like we said earlier in another module, automatic campaigns where you just let Amazon pick the keywords it thinks is relevant, and it's testing. And it's just going to go out there and it's just going to try to find stuff and just going to test. And that's the first one I recommend you set up. The second one I recommend you set up is an exact match campaign. And the third one that I recommend you set up is a broad match campaign. Now, we talk about product targeting in a different module, so you refer to that module if you want to set up a product targeting campaign. That's another option where you can target other people's products, or you can target categories of products. In this module, we're just talking about setting it up for specific keywords, or for letting Amazon do the automatic where they choose the keywords. Sometimes when you do the automatic, Amazon will find keywords that you didn't think of, or some random stuff that could be possible gems. So the other thing you got to keep in mind is when you're looking at the keywords that you're going to go and advertise on is the competition level. Now, when you're going into a tool like Magnets from Helium 10, if I was to type in, say in this example, we're going to do a pull-up bar. And I said to get the keywords or similar keywords for pull-up bar. I've searched this before because I had a pull-up bar before. But you can see the word pull-up bar with a space has 40,000 searches per month, roughly. If I don't have a space, the numbers are going to be different. So Amazon treats those different, only 13,000. So keep that in mind too. That's spaces and even plurals with an S. Amazon says they account for some of that, but it's not always true if it has an S or not, or if it has a space. For example, on pull-up bar, when you're taking a look at this, these tools will show you the number of competing products for each of these. Like this one in Spanish here only has 2 products that showed up. Some of these have 30,000. All these mean is that's how many are indexed for that. It doesn't mean these use 30,000 competitors. It just means that Amazon, for the words fitness equipment gym, there's more than 30,000 results. Really, the number of competitors is probably the first 2, 3, 4 pages max. Really, the first page is where most of the competition occurs, but sometimes they go a little bit deeper. So most of these guys are really not competitors. So I really don't pay a heavy attention to this. But the one I do pay attention to is this one called Sponsored ASINs. And the Sponsored ASINs ones, if the higher the number here, the more competitive it's going to be. So like Fitness Equipment Gym, at the time that the Helium 10 ran this could change. So this is not in real time. They run this periodically. There was 200 different ASINs, different unique ASINs that were trying to bid for Fitness Equipment Gym. So when you go after that keyword, that means it's going to be pretty competitive. And you're probably going to have to raise your bids, maybe even more than what you're comfortable with in the beginning, to try to get placement on that. Versus if you look at something like some of these others, this one, Pull Up Bard, I don't even know what that is, but only 33 at the time of this. And here's one, Pull Up Bar Everlast, that's a brand name, only 12. And you can go after brand names in PPC. That's okay to actually try to get on other people's brands. But you look at like this one here that has a 0. That doesn't always mean that it's 0. You might look at that and go, oh, wow, 0, that's a great opportunity. It just means at the time that Helium 10 ran this, either there was 0, which it could be a valid statement, or there was some sort of technical error. When they reached out to the server, there was a timeout. So you always want to check. So knee raised machine, you want to check and see if actually anybody is sponsored. See their sponsors right here. The first 3 right here are sponsors. So that's a false positive. So that's something you always want to check. But I like to go after ones that have lower amounts. I wouldn't say there's a magic number if it's under 200 or under 100, but ones that have lower amounts are going to be ones that are going to be a little bit easier to compete. Now, sometimes the ones that you want are just going to be, there's going to be a ton of people competing. So just going into that, just understand that you may have to raise your bids and settle for less profit or maybe even lose money to try to get rank in the beginning because there's a lot of competition. So this is something to keep in mind here when you're looking, analyzing your keywords. When you pull that data and you make your list, I would actually put how many people are sponsored. Don't pay attention to the competing one. It's really not that important. But how many are in the sponsored. In the CPR one, like we said in other modules, is more important for like getting ranking onto page 1, how many you need to sell to get onto page 1. So these are some things that you can use on Magnet to actually see what you might want to target or not. So that's what I mean by the depth and the competition. The depth is more the competing products, but it's the depth is really how deep does the competition go. Um, so back on Amazon, what we want to do is let's go ahead and set up first our initial auto PPC. So I'm going to go right here where it says create campaign. I'm on the campaigns tab, create campaign. Now in yours, if you're not brand registered, the sponsored one in the middle here, sponsored brands and sponsored display, it will say like enroll or say something else. You won't have access to these. These are only once you get brand registered, when you have brand analytics and you have all the benefits. That's why you got to get that trademark. Why I emphasize that? Because these open up where you can, the sponsored brands is where you can put the little ads at the top that are like banners that appear at the top and have like 3 products in them. And the sponsored display is basically where Amazon will do what's called retargeting. And so when someone comes and takes a look at your product or even similar products, maybe it's your competition's product, and they don't buy it, and then they go onto Facebook or they go onto Google or they go to some news site, and all of a sudden there's ads there that start showing up and saying, hey, don't forget about your pull-up bar at Amazon or whatever. You can target those people, and this can be really, really very valuable to pull them back to your detail page. So it's not only people that look at yours, but people that actually look at other similar products to yours, and you can advertise. And so, but these are only available if you are brand registered on Amazon. So where you're going to be spending your time right now is in the sponsored products one. These two are really powerful, especially this one right here. That's in beta right now. Sponsored brands one can be good. You have to have 3 or more products. So even if you're brand registered and you have your trademark, if you don't have at least 3 products in that brand, you're not going to be able to run these. But the sponsored display is a pretty powerful thing if done right. But back here on sponsored products, that's the one you're going to probably have, the only one that's going to be active for you. If you're and when you start, you're going to hit continue. And here you can give your campaign a name. So I might just call this a pull-up bar auto campaign, whatever you want to call it. You can come up with a naming structure. Oops. I'll put a number sign, campaign 1. If you had a portfolio, this is a little bit more advanced. You can put it into portfolios. It just makes it the navigation a little bit easier. If you're super ADD, you might want to set up portfolios, but we're not going to worry about that now. Start date, I typically start them right away, but maybe for some reason you want to start it later and you want to end it. I usually leave that blank. Your daily budget. Now this is what you're capping at, but Amazon has the ability to actually raise this. So sometimes you may put a daily budget of say $50 and you spent $70 today. As Amazon, they don't always go by it. It's kind of like averaged over a month-long period. But let's just say your budget is $50. Now for an automatic campaign, I don't recommend doing $5 or $10. Some people say that. I recommend when you first launch your product, you need to get some data quickly. You don't have time to be dilly-dallying around. It's going to take a week or 2, sometimes up to a month before you have some really solid data, because there's a lag of a couple days in some of the reporting, and you need to let things take time for day of the week and other factors that can affect things. So I like to start with at least 50. Sometimes I'll go 100. And you may say that's a lot of money, but I want the data. If you're not comfortable with that, start with at least 25 or 30. Now the targeting, you're going to do automatic on this one. So it's going to be automatic targeting. Amazon is going to pick the keywords it's going to put you on. It's going to pick your competition's pages or complementary pages it's going to put you on. Now these are the 3 types of bids you can do. And let's talk about those for just a second. We'll talk about them in another module. Fixed bids, this one down here at the bottom, that basically means that Amazon's not going to adjust your bid. There's nothing going to be changed. Whatever you say you bid, I want a $1 per click, that's what it's going to be. Down only means Amazon lowers the bid when they don't expect you to convert as well. So if you tell them I want to bid $1, but that keyword based on Amazon's knowledge of how it's performed in the past, either for your product and for other products, they may lower your bid down so that you don't waste money because they know the chance of someone actually buying if they click is lower. The up and down is where Amazon will increase your bids by up to, they can lower or increase your bids by up to a maximum of 100%. So they could take you down to zero and like wipe out your bid, or they could double your bid basically when they expect it to either be low or high. So the basics is up and down typically will lead to the most sales. So if you click on the up and down, it's going to lead to the most sales. But the problem is the up and down when you first start can be a little bit tricky. This is up and down. I recommend more for once you know that these keywords are performing. So it's and I would also on your up and down, if you come back and you use this later, I would start with down only in the beginning. And then once you find keywords that actually work, then I would come and switch some of those into an up and down campaign, create a new campaign, and do an up and down, and lower the bid. So whatever you had in the down campaign, I would lower that bid by probably 30 to 50% and put in an up and down campaign. And because I know those are actually working. The fixed one is best if you just want to drive impressions. If you really are not worried so much about conversion and ACoS and tacos, and you're just trying to get brand awareness. That's really the best time for fixed bids. I don't really recommend you start there. I recommend you start with a down only. Now the other one you see here is adjust bids by placement. This used to be called Bid Plus. Now placements have different performances. Top of search means basically the first page of the search results, you're up at the top in those top 1, 2, 3 positions. And product pages means you're shown on other people's product pages. You could be your competition or complementary products. So top of search has the highest click-through rate and the highest conversion rate. It's definitely the highest to be on top of search, but you also pay for it. And so it could work for you, or you can spend money really, really fast. The product display pages, this one right here, definitely has the most volume. You're going to have a lot more impressions if you want to focus on product display pages. So basically, the top of search and product display pages generate a lot of sales, but you're going to have to test if you want to see which ones of these work. Now, for your automatic campaign, I would probably not mess with these, but when we get into the manual campaign in a minute, you can adjust these by up to 900%. So if you could say, like, I don't want to be on other people's product pages. I want to run a campaign where I'm just at the top of the search results, and I just want to see if my product will work. And you could change this to 900%. And what they will do is they'll raise your bid up to basically 9 times. For example, a 75 cents bid would be up to $7.50 for this placement. And then what they're going to do is they're going to pretty much spend almost all of your money on the top of search. Or you could say, I don't really care about top of search. I want to go onto other people's pages. And you could get more emphasis to that and go on other people's pages. Now for this automatic campaign, I'm going to leave those at both zeros because I don't want to blow through some cash on when I don't know what works. So I'm only going to use this later once I know what works when I set up manual. Here you can set up ad groups if you want. So I'm just going to call this ad test or something, ad test 1. And then you're going to choose the product you're going to advertise. You could search for it by name, or you can just click an ad. I have this little demo account here, so I'm just going to add this product. Now, I don't recommend you run an automatic campaign. See, they say you can add additional products here. I don't recommend you do that. I recommend you keep one product per campaign. And if you want to advertise separate products, create separate campaigns because they'll perform differently. That's just my recommendation. This is your target. This is your bid. Now, Amazon is suggesting a bid of $1.37, and they're saying this is a typical range right here. Typically, if you want to try to get some impressions, I'm going to take this number right here and add 10 to 20% to it. So if I want to, if I want to really try to see if I can get onto page 1 somewhere, I'm going to probably need to raise that up by at least 10 to 20%. So 20% of that is going to be about 27, 28 cents or so. So I'm just going to roughly go about $1.60. Now, if you really want to force yourself, brute force your way up, you go this high 257, maybe add 20% to that. But I don't. If you want to do that, you can. That'll get you some faster results on some answers. But just understand you're going to blow through some cash and waste some money getting those answers, which you may be okay with. But there is another science to setting up the default bid, which I showed you in a different module where you can calculate this, what you should be bidding based on the target ACoS and stuff. So take a look at that module, and that could help you. Negative phrases is where you can you have negative phrase and negative exact. This is if you want to make sure something doesn't show up. So let's say I'm targeting I don't want to show up for the word pull-ups because I'm doing a pull-up bar, but from my past knowledge by looking at my ad reports, we'll talk about this in another module. Sometimes the word pull-ups is people are typing that in for pull-ups, like pull-ups bras or pull-up drawstrings or something. And my ad is showing up in a lot of places where I don't want it to show up. So you can negative out a phrase. So that means a phrase would be like if it's pull-ups, if the keywords was pull-ups bra, and I just put the word pull-ups, that will take it out. That would negative match that phrase. If that phrase exists, it would negative match it out of the keyword. Or if I wanted to say exactly pull-ups bra, I could put the exact. You're probably going to leave this blank when you first start because you're not going to know unless you just have some knowledge already, something that just you don't want to show up for. You can also put ASINs in here too. So that's where this is used. This is more used later when you're fine-tuning and you're optimizing your campaign. So I wouldn't really worry about that right now. Once you've done all that, you're going to go ahead and you can either save it as a draft or you can launch your campaign. And now we've got our campaign, our automatic campaign, and it's running. I didn't make any adjustments. I'm just doing a standard auto campaign. And now I'm going to let this run for at least 2 weeks, hopefully a month. And I'm going to come in here and check this in about 3 to 4 days for the first time, and then at a minimum every single week. And I'm going to make some adjustments to this. I may raise my bid, lower my bid, see what the impressions are. We'll talk about that in another module where we talk about optimization. But that's what I would do is let that run, and then you're going to come in and you're going to go into the advertising. And remember, there's in the campaign manager here, there's something called reports. When it pulls back up, there's advertising reports, and these don't run in real time. They run a few days behind. So you're going to download these reports and analyze them, and we'll talk about that in another module and make some adjustments. But right now, we're just talking about just getting this thing set up. So the next thing we want to talk about is doing a manual campaign. So we're going to go back and we're going to create another campaign now. So we got our auto campaign running. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to create another campaign. And this time I'm going to do a manual campaign because I've got my list of keywords that I've done my research from the other modules. And these are 20, 30 keywords that I think are relevant to my product that I want to see if people that are searching for those will buy my product. And so this time I'm going to call this one pull-up bar exact match. So pull-up bar exact match campaign. I'm going to go ahead and leave the start date. You can change these if you want. Let's say my daily budget for this, I need to get some answers pretty quickly, so don't do like $5 or $10 a day. I'm going to just do $100 right here. Now this time we're going to do manual targeting instead of automatic because we're going to tell Amazon what to target. Now remember, you have your I would leave this on down only until you have some results. I would not mess with this probably in the beginning. Now, if you want to be super aggressive and your budget is not so restrictive, you could come in here and go after top of search. That's going to give you the answers really fast, but just understand you could blow through money really quickly. And but that if you want to do that, I would lower the bid. So when you ran the other how much should you bid in one of the earlier modules, and let's say it said 8 cents or something in there that says top of search, which you go up to, you use that percentage here. So you're going to lower your bid. So if you were going to bid say $1, you're going to lower that bid probably to like 20 cents or something, whatever the numbers say in that spreadsheet, and then you're going to put like 900% right here, and that's going to take your bid low, and then they'll raise it if you can be at up, if you be at top of search. So that'll force your way at the top. The top of search gets quite a bit more action, but like I said, you can spend money really fast there and lose money really fast if you have some non-converting keywords. So I'm just going to leave that blank for right now because I first want to test and just see what's happening. Here you can create an ad group if you want, exact pull-up test or whatever you want to call it. You can get real creative here and organize how you organize all these. We could talk about that for hours. I'm going to add my product, whichever one it is. And now down here, you have keyword targeting and product targeting. We covered product targeting in another module. So right now we're going to be talking about keyword targeting. Now Amazon will make some suggestions down here. They have all these suggestions of things that you should target. So you could look through here and maybe there's something that you might want to go and check in Helium 10 and see if it's actually good to target or not. But I've already done my research, so you could either upload a file or enter keywords. You can choose the match tab. Now I'm doing exact here, and I have my keywords. So these are my keywords right here that I've determined that I want to test for this product based on my research. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a maximum of 5 of these in a campaign. Amazon will let you put up to 1,000. You could just copy all these and put them into that one campaign, but I recommend not putting more than about 5. So I'm going to have to come in here and set up multiple campaigns. And then if one of these keywords has more than 1,000 searches per month, according to Helium 10, Cerebro or Magnet, I'm going to put it in its own campaign when I start. So that's where, like I said, in the organization with portfolios and campaigns, you can create this hierarchy. But so I'm going to repeat that. I don't like to put more than 5 keywords in any one campaign. So if I got these, this is going to be groups of campaigns here. I'm going to have to set up a bunch of different ad sets, not just one. And the reason I do that is because if you put a lot in there, Amazon will pick and choose some of them to give most of the attention to, and they ignore the rest. And I don't want them to do that. I want them to test all my stuff because I need to know. And anything that has more than 1,000 searches, that's a good keyword. And so if you have it mixed in with others that don't have 1,000 searches, it can you're not going to get the full impact of testing. So I would put each campaign stands on its own, and so I don't like to have big keywords in there that are competing with smaller keywords, and Amazon's just giving the attention to the smaller ones and not to the big one. So I'll put the big keywords in their own campaign, just one in that campaign. So I would come back over and where I was entering those keywords, just put one. Another thing is I like to group keywords that have similar search volumes together. So like let's just pretend this is not the actual search volume, but let's pretend this number was the search volume. So these that have 536, 537, any other close to that, 534, 412 is kind of close, 412, what's that, 4 of them? And maybe it's 398. So I would put those 5 together in a campaign that has similar search volume. And then I would go and create the next campaign that has, say like this guy that has 55, 82, 107, 135, and one other one that's really low, 121. So I would put those 5 in a campaign together, and so on. You see what I'm saying there? So that's how I like to set them up. I think you're gonna see better results. And remember, you get to go in every week and test these, and so you want to give yourself a chance. And so when you're doing all this too, you want to make sure you bid high enough. Don't be cheap here. You need to bid high enough to give yourself a chance, because when you first start, Amazon will give you the benefit of the doubt. They will throw you out there and they will test you, and it's kind of like throwing you to the wolves. If you can't escape, then they know that, okay, we're not going to start showing you anymore. But if you can stay there and fight them and have a chance and get conversions, they'll keep giving you more and more opportunities, and your campaigns can start working really well. So if these were some of my keywords here, let's just say this one has 6,000, so I would put it in a campaign by itself. But let's take these two. What I say? The other 500 guys. This one. I'm going to take this one. If there's similar amounts, and take that one. Yeah, take that one. Let's take this one for now. So these are all relatively similar. So these 5 I'm going to put in one campaign. Now this pull-up bar, because it's got this, if that was the actual search volume, then that number, I would put this by itself. But for our illustrations right here, I'm going to take these 5, come back over here, and I'm going to enter them right here. So these are my 5. I've entered them as exact. I'm going to say add keywords. So it defaulted to my 75 cents default bid. Now I can come in here and adjust these. You can hit the apply, and it will just do the suggested bid. Remember, you want to go about 10 to 20% above this to have a chance when you're first testing. And so, unless you have some data already that shows you're going after a target ACoS, when you're first testing, you're going to need to go a little bit above this. So I would add about 20% to that, which is about 26 cents, so about $1.55. Now some people say don't go $1.55, go $1.57, because everybody goes even amounts or go some weird amount. I don't know if that matters or not, but whatever you want to do. So I would go through here and I would enter each one of these, so $1.40 or whatever 20% is to that, $1.19. 20% on that one is about 17 cents, so about $1.02. 20% on that's about 20 cents, so call it $1.23. So those are going to be my bids on these 5. They're exact. If I had negatives, but I don't right now, we'll talk about that when we do optimization. And that's pretty much all you have to do. Now, I would do the same thing with these exact same 5 keywords, and the exact same after I've done this. And I would create one of these and do broad. You could also do phrase, but some people like to do phrase. My personal preference, I'm not saying this is the absolute right way for everybody, but I like to do exact and broad. Broad is more of a wide net, and exact are those exact keywords. Remember we talked about that in another module. So you would come back and repeat this process and do the same thing with phrase. So if I hit launch campaign, now my campaign's launched. And you can see down here, my campaigns, these 2 are both active, and there's not going to be any data here. This data runs behind. You can adjust the date ranges here. You can export the data. You can filter the data. There's lots of things that you can do here. You can come back in here and take a look at it and edit them later if you need to edit them. This is basically all you have to do to set them up. Now, the analyzation and the fine tuning of this is where it gets you get into the weeds and gets quite a bit more complicated. Now, something else to keep in mind when you're targeting these, if you're targeting your own brand name, you're typically going to get a pretty high conversion and a pretty high conversion rates if you're targeting your own brand name, but your ACoS could be a little bit higher too. If you're targeting high keywords that are highly relevant to your product category, your conversion rates are probably going to be a little bit more average. And if you're targeting really low relevant keywords to your category, your conversion rates are going to naturally be low. If you're targeting competitors' brand names, your conversion rates are probably going to be pretty low in the beginning, but once you start getting some conversions over time, those might actually go up. So that's something else to keep in mind when you're setting these up. Now, after you've set these up, you could come back, and once you figure out which keywords are working when you're doing the optimization, you can go and create campaigns, or you can change them to up and down Remember I said do down only in the beginning, but the ones that have good conversion volume and good metrics, you could change them up and down, and that could get you even some more visibility and more clicks. You can also duplicate campaigns and turn some things off if you want to. So there's a lot of fine tuning here that we'll talk about in another module where we're talking about optimization, how to read the reports, how to come in here and make adjustments. Just remember, don't be super cheap here. Give yourself a chance. Be willing to spend a little bit of money. You're probably going to lose a little bit of money. Don't be so worried or fret over the ACoS in the beginning, because you got to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And the beauty of this is once you figure out what works, you can then scale that, and that's where things really start to take off and get on fire, and you can really launch yourself. So hopefully this has helped you in some of the basics of setting up, and I'll see you in the next month.